Hello everybody, Peanut Shell here. No, I didn't get that one either, but don't worry, we will get to that in a bit. This video is going to be dedicated to the several-minute segment from Ariel Helwani's MMA Hour show regarding wrestling's answer to Grandpa Simpson with his trousers boinging down every few minutes because he can't stop embarrassing himself. That's it. Ric Flair, woo, the nature boy. He crawled out of his sarcophagus long enough when the nurse's back was turned and managed an appearance on Ariel Helwani's show. And it was a absolute 10-car pile-up car crash all the way through, as all Ric Flair's interviews are these days. It was like an hour-long drunken Ric Flair cameo, if you can imagine that, except we got this one for free, whether we wanted it or not. Kind of like that U2 album that downloaded automatically on all the iTunes holders or listeners or whatever it is. But anyway, we'll talk about all the other bleatings and blatherings of Ric Flair, of the excremental stain of the wrestling profession a little later, because Ric Flair specifically invoked the names of Stevie Richards, eventually, Dutch Mantell, even more eventually, and myself. Well, he actually didn't remember my name, despite quite clearly searching for as many of my videos as humanly possible on my channels. But anyway, he wasn't asked about any of us, by the way. He just started blurting out stuff about us after talking about Triple H receiving a lot of criticism, which led to this interview clip.
I get punks like fucking Stevie, what's his name? Stevie Richards and Zeb Coulter, whatever his name is, or what's the guy's name?
Yes, with the big beard. He was with Jack Swagger.
Yeah.
Ric Flair then continues, and it gets more interesting as we go on.
The name is escaping me, but I know exactly who you're talking about.
For a guy that has suffered serious health problems, not as serious as mine, I would keep my mouth shut. Because if you don't have a legacy, you can't talk about a legacy.
Okay, so yes, he actually just tried to one-up Dutch Mantell there with his health woes, with his own health woes. Yeah, I'm more sick than you, pal. Why the Drinking Man's Wrestler is trying to own Dutch on who was more sick some years ago when they both could have easily died, and thank goodness they both didn't, I will never know, unless it is in fact what Stevie Richards said. It's the old wrestler ego trip, the one-upsmanship in any category, it doesn't matter what it was. Also, what has Dutch got anything to do with being sick about with Ric Flair's legacy here? And what does having a legacy or not having a legacy in regards to whatever Ric Flair means it to me in reporting the news on Ric Flair's latest embarrassments? So that's what we do on all of our shows. We don't hunt out for reasons to talk about Ric Flair. He hands us these news stories on the regular, and we talk about them. He is the content creator's gift that just keeps on giving, like somebody with diarrhea, essentially. Now, apparently, according to the Nature Boy, only wrestlers who've held, I guess, multiple fake world titles are allowed to call themselves legacy wrestlers or main events or whatever, who can criticize him on whatever buffoonery he's committed that day, whether it's arguing in a pizzeria or allegedly shitting in Tampa area restaurants and getting barred. And if you think I'm just making that up, that was actually the case, at least according to a very popular Reddit post a year ago, or something like that, which has now been deleted. Now let's get back to the video.
And he and Stevie Richards and that little jack-off, what's the kid's name that does the interviews for him? Oh, God. I call him the peanut shell. The guy that does the interviews for Zeb.
Zeb, by the way, is Dutch Mantell.
I know, Dutch Mantell, yeah.
Yes.
Gordon Bennett is painful. It's painful. Ric Flair's interviews are more painful by the minute, I'll tell you. Now, I've got to be honest here. Ric Flair's tongue is so big in his mouth that I didn't even hear what he said, or it kind of I glossed over it completely the first time I listened to that. And I just never noticed it until other people pointed it out to me. But hey, I'll take Jack off if nothing else. But yeah, peanut shell. I immediately Googled this and wanted to see if this was an established insult or not, or in fact it's ever been used anywhere before. No, it hasn't, as best I can tell. Flair apparently made it up in his own pickled brain. He's giving me nicknames which I'm figure are meant to be insulting, but I'm not even sure what it's in reference to. But anyway, I want you to know, whatever it was, whatever the intent, that being called Peanut Shell stung. I was upset. I felt angry. I felt disrespected. I felt violated worse than an air hostess on a transatlantic flight from Europe, to tell you the truth. Let's get back to the video.
So
now I understand. I'll tell you a great story. I love it.
Please.
We're in Marietta, Georgia, and Lex Luger.
This might sound familiar.
Used to always speak of himself in the third person. And look at Jack Mulligan, who was the agent, and he goes, "Why would a Lex Luger wrestle a what's his real name again?"
Jesus, I tell you.
Dutch?
Dutch
Mantell.
I understand why Luger said it.
One second, I kind of screwed it there. I love that there's actually a Bret Hart figurine right next to the TV screen where Ric Flair's on, by the way.
In the fuck is Dutch Mantell? Now I understand why Luger said it. Who in the fuck is Dutch Mantell? A fuzzball with serious health problems that should mind his own business.
Dutch Mantell is quite clearly not Dutch's real name. It was another wrestler's name called Dutch Mantell many years earlier. His real name is Wayne Cowan, and Flair very well knows Dutch's real name. This is the kind of I'm better than you. I'm going to, well, one, either pretend that I don't know your name to make myself more important, which is a very common tactic with Flair, as far as I can tell. Or even worse, he really does have CTE that bad that he can't remember anybody's name when he's trying to make a point. And he's the one who brought this point up in the first place. He was not cajoled. He was not asked about any of us at this point. Now, just to keep in mind this as well, Dutch Mantell, they've been trolling each other online for years. Flair knows very well who Dutch is. And Mantell, he knows very well, has gotten the best of Flair on every single turn and every occasion. They've worked together for decades. They have wrestled together. They have booked each other in different territories for decades. I'm sure that Flair watched Dutch's numerous burials of his final match more times than Flair has had divorces, for example. Let's watch a little bit more.
And Stevie Richards, my little finger is bigger than his neck.
So, Stevie did watch that and then immediately went to the gym and thought, maybe I should do some shrugs. Maybe I should do some neck bridges. I don't know what he did. But I've got to just continue on with the Dutch thing. It's like, the point is that with Dutch, it's like, keep your name out of my mouth or mind your own business, whatever. On the basis of what? Why? We do news on our shows. Flair keeps making the news on our shows, not for reasons we're manufacturing, for the reasons of Flair just being a dick constantly and it going public and going viral. That's why we're reacting to it. Dutch is pointing out your numerous glaring flaws and inadequacies and your numerous pathetic incidents and quotes wherever they happen in different interviews. And please bear in mind that at no point does Flair actually challenge Dutch or Stevie or myself on any videos and any discussions that we've had that revolve around Ric Flair about him whatsoever. Even the stuff where we're being nice about him. He just goes, well, you didn't win any fake titles, so therefore... And I've got so-and-so's telephone number, so I'm more famous, so you don't have the right to talk about me. Get onto telephone numbers in a minute.
So these guys are talking about you online, and it's getting to you and bothering you.
No, it doesn't bother me. I laugh at it. How could it bother me? Who are they? You got to be... I just talked to...
All right, we'll get to that next minute. Okay, right. Have you ever seen somebody in your life more bothered while trying to act like they're not bothered at all? Flair was once again not asked about us. Our names never came up at any point. He just went on a little tantrum, having a little pity party, and it's at the forefront of his mind, and then he's trying to say that he's not bothered at all. This video is currently 2 minutes 15, by the way, and it continues.
I was just in Vegas and I just talked to Donald Trump on the phone myself. Do I give a shit about those guys?
I mean, I guess for a lot of people that might not be the flex you think it is, but let's continue with more celeb name drops. Clang.
They don't even have Donald's number.
That is true. None of us have Donald Trump's number.
What was the context there?
I can call Charles Barkley. I can call Shaq. I can call. There's no name somebody famous that I can. Mark Wahlberg. I mean, I can call anybody because I've earned their respect. Darius Rucker, Kid Rock, Snoop Dogg. I have all their numbers right here on speed dial. These guys don't know anything.
So, all those clangs dropping, that was all the names being dropped as well by Ric Flair. Also, speed dial. Hey, no Rolodexes for these lucky celebs, my goodness me. So Flair's apparently sat at home, still ringing people from his landline because everything's on speed dial now, unless you've got a landline, I guess. Speed dialing celebrities, or at least, threatening to at least, to prove that he matters more in his own mind, I guess. Now, to Ric Flair, and this is going to be a serious point, his currency, his yardstick of whether a man is successful or not, or worthy of his time, I guess, is how many celebrities they've met in their life, or how many autographs they have signed, or maybe even how much money they have in their bank accounts, or how many fake matches they won, or fake world title belts they had handed to them over the course of their career. That's it. Nothing about the content of somebody's character, or their intelligence, or their kindness, or their work ethic, or their empathy, or their sense of humor. That response just tells me that Rick is shallower than a plate full of piss. You are either, I guess, according to him, I'm just guessing, surmising at this point, but you are either on Ric Flair's level, however he measured it, or you are shit on his shoe. Or, if you're not famous or influential, are you rich? If you can do something for Flair, like maybe pay his bar tab, I'm sure you'll be his best friend that day. A few years ago, Ric Flair claimed that he only had 3 true friends in the entire world: Vince McMahon, Hulk Hogan, and Conrad Thompson. And when asked why, he said it's because they would lend him money and not ask for it back. Strikes me that Flair wants to get whatever he can get out of you, and he will call you a friend as long as that money train keeps rolling. And if you have stayed, even if you stayed loyal to him for years, if you can't do anything for him today, well then you're yesterday's chip paper, buddy. Now, even longtime friends in wrestling like Triple H and Arn Anderson don't have much regard for him personally, even if they do professionally, from what I can gather with all these interviews and documentaries and such. Mark Madden and Ric Flair were friends for decades, until they weren't anymore. And Rick always claims in interviews, because he can't help but open his mouth in a public forum, that it was always the other person who blew up the friendship, by the way. Of course, it's one of those things where if you're surrounded by arseholes, maybe you're the arsehole. Now, McMahon is mostly AWOL these days. Hulk Hogan is sadly dead. And poor Conrad Thompson for having to put up with Ric Flair the second time on that disastrous final podcast run. Does he have actually any real friends at all, Ric Flair, anymore? I don't know. But we've got more stuff on the video.
And don't know shit. But the only way they make a dime, and I'm sure it's a minimal amount of money, is by cracking on people that are successful. And the older you get, and the more successful you stay, and the more relevant you stay, the more jealous they get.
That's deep. Now, I'm not at liberty to discuss other people's financial positions here. I'll leave it to Dutch and Stevie if they want to address it. But I'll say this about me. I make good money at what I do. And I'm very wise with my money that I make through YouTube and podcast endeavors and wherever else. Now, the reason Flair says we aren't making money, or if we are, I'm sure it'll be dimes or whatever it is because he's a 3-time podcast failure who drooled through his shows, rambled on about nothing, with all the entitlement in the world. Well, I'm Ric Flair, I should be popular, that kind of thing. Lost his train of thoughts, or had simply no memory of what he was being asked about in the first place. He plain sucked. He was absolutely talentless as a podcaster or a broadcaster. So, Rick, if you are going to judge a man by the size of his wallet and judging by Flair's horrible track record with money and embellishing his personal wealth, I'm fairly sure my net worth is more than Ric Flair's at this point. But if you want to talk about being successful, I'll talk about how I personally am, because I'm taking this as a personal insult, as should Dutch, as should Stevie, but I'm going to direct it towards me and respond thusly. I'm now going to tell you how I'm personally more successful than Ric Flair is, because that's apparently all it is to Rick, is success, whether he treats you nicely or well or not. And for starters, buddy, I'm a better father than you could ever hope to be. My entire family actually love and respect me and don't dread me shaming them in public every other week. And also, I actually have lots of friends, actual friends, not hangers-on or people who want something from me, just friends who've begrudgingly accepted me for who I am. I'm not going to go on any further because I could be self-aggrandizing and blah, 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 all that kind of thing, and it isn't a good look for me to do that either. But if we're going to measure against metrics that matter, and I'm not talking about wealth, I'm talking about the other things, personal relationships and stuff, I'm one of the richest, most fortunate, most contented people you will ever meet on the planet, despite the complaining I do about pro wrestling might lead you to believe the otherwise. I really am. I'm a lucky, lucky boy. Now, on the jealousy aspect, I cannot speak for others, but I am personally not jealous of Ric Flair using any metric. Now, I never had any desire to ever be a pro wrestler at any point in my life, despite the fact that I loved it for many years. I do not envy his career or his lifestyle or his personal circumstances in the slightest. I never wanted to be remotely famous or noted. I am currently a quasi-recognizable name in a niche topic on a singular platform, YouTube, and that's already too much recognition for me. I pity Ric Flair. I truly do. Here's somebody that had it all. He has thrown it away, thrown it in people's faces so many times over, it's hard to keep track. The money, the family, the glitz, the glamour, the admiration from fans and professionals alike, becoming one of the few pro wrestlers to transcend the business and become a proper household name the world over. And now he is a household has-been, the only clown in the circus that doesn't realise that he is the joke, the walking punchline. Now, I'm going to talk about all the other things aside from us in that interview in a completely separate video, because this has already gone on way too long. But before I do, because Ric Flair insulted me, little old me, would you believe, Honest James, here's one back for you, so turn up your hearing aid, you fucking dried up old cumsock. Apparently, the only thing thinner than your hair is your skin. Now, you traded in your goodwill decades ago, traded it in and replaced with a succession of lawsuits and default judgments because of all the unpaid loans you accumulated over the years. The only thing more depressing than watching you slip down the greasy pole of relevancy was watching you doddering about in slow motion for your final ever match. You're not a sad old man, you are the saddest old man, rambling, slurring through what remains of your pathetic life, embittered, pitiful, still hobble-strutting around town, thinking that you're still the man. Now, you said recently that WWE is trying to kill your legacy. Buddy, you set alight that legacy, and you stomped that legacy into dust, and you pissed on the ashes years ago. Now, if you weren't such a perpetual fuck-up, getting yourself barred one by one from every establishment in South Tampa, and then doing these deeply ill-advised interviews, then nobody would be talking much about you at all. That is my rebuttal. All that remains for me to say now is happy birthday, Barf. And if anybody wants to pay me $1,000 for a cameo in which I tell you to not get married, please email James